Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Star Trek's adventures, and we're going to talk about security crewman Archibald, and we're going to talk about not enough security. All right, so it's really fascinating. We're running this story on in the Enterprise series, right? So this is the first of all the Star Trek shows. It's not the original series, but chronologically, it's the first, right? So this is the first Enterprise. So what's really shocking about it is there are not really families living on board the Enterprise. They never really showed that, right? And the crew is shown as 83 people on board, right? So that's all it takes to crew the original Star Enterprise, NX-01, which is really fascinating, right? And so I really found that incredibly fascinating. So I set security at 10% of that number, which meant there were only 8 security. The head of security is Mayweather. He is a character I did not click with and really didn't understand at all in the show. And so and he did give orders to Archibald early, but then he went into a coma, right? And so at this point he is in a coma, right? Which is kind of interesting. And which means that security crewman Archibald is running the show. However, they are down to 4 security crew. So how did that happen? Well, Mayweather went into a coma. Whittingham died. The two of them went into that all happened when the Ferengi attacked the Enterprise NX-01 on first contact, because Klang the Klingon instigated an unexpected fight, and first contact between humans and Ferengi went horribly wrong, and 44 Ferengi died. Now what's wild is at this point, because of Ellison's science station, that has all been fixed because of the work of Corso and Archibald have really fixed the, which is pretty wild, that they've been able to fix the Ferengi first contact issue. But there's very good relations between the humans and Ferengi now, like 3 months later. But, okay, so Mayweather went into, not Mayweather. Mayweather is the pilot. Apologies, not Mayweather. Mayweather is the pilot. I can't even remember his name. He is such a non-character to me. He seems really duplicative of Tucker, and I wonder why they even put him in the show. But in my story, he's just had really very little impact, and he's in a coma. So the head of security is in a coma, okay? I'm sorry, Mayweather is the pilot. Sorry about that. All right. So at this point, so Whittingham, one of the security members, died. One of them's in a coma, and then 2 of them were reassigned to Ellison Science Station when it was found out that the Ellison Science Station was corrupted by a gang of drug dealers, right? Which were cleared out by Archibald and Corso, and that whole science station was set right, which was really nice. So at this point, Tucker comes to security crewman Archibald, and at this point, it should be noted, Tucker and Archibald have a very strained relationship. They're constantly on the opposite ends of advice to Archer, okay? But Tucker is a very good friend to Archer. Tucker is a very good friend to Archer, Captain Archer. So at this point, Tucker comes and he says, listen, actually, this was completely the gold player's idea. He said, I need to get more security staff. So he went to Tucker and had the conversation, right? So Tucker's like, okay, no problem. We'll put out a 72-hour message, and we'll ask for volunteers from all crew, right? Because you're absolutely right. You guys are down to half. right? And you should be replenished, right? And we're gonna have to do it from within our own crew. So that goes out to the whole ship, a message to the whole ship saying, hey, anybody who wants to join as a security officer, you can join as a security officer now, right? You will shift your tasks, right? So 3 days later, he meets with Tucker, and Tucker says, literally no one volunteered. So that's a problem, right? That's a problem, right? And he said, so you got a problem, but guess what? I got good news. Starfleet, we have officers and we have crewmen, and we can give orders. And guess what? You are now cleared to choose anyone on the ship except bridge crew, right? So bridge crew are important, but you could take whoever you want, right? And so this was really, and you could reassign them to your team, right? And you have 24 hours to give me 2 ideas, right? So they then have a conversation between Tucker and the Gold Dragon, and I really like this. So we walked it through. We were like, okay, there's the diplomats. You probably don't want them. They're soft-skinned, and they're literally for making peace. They're probably going to be a bad security officer, because every time you've been involved, we've been a centimeter away from a fight. And I don't think a single diplomatic Starfleet officer wants that. You could take command, right? So like literally, like Riker was command, right? Or you could take from the science crew, or you could take from the engineering crew, or you could take from medical, right? And then Tucker says, listen, I suggest you do not take from medical, do not take from diplomat. The medical are extremely skilled and will be very hard to replace. I also think it could be very disruptive to command if you take any of them. They're pretty critical, right? But the reality is, and then he said, and I also think that you shouldn't take from engineering because they're needed. But the reality is this ship is chock full of a bunch of scientists, and we don't need half of them. Half of them haven't even reached a place where their study would be valuable, right? So this was really interesting. So the gold player said, okay, I've made my decision. I'm going to take 1 science and one engineering, right? So then I had those people completely reassigned, and I increased his staff by 2. But I also said to him, listen, in this session, you will not get their names, right? Because I wanted a little bit of time to build them out, right? So I do that. I'll say, okay, listen, we're going to put a placeholder here. You can give orders to these crewmen or crew women, right? But we really don't know who they were or what they were. And so, to tell the truth, what really shocks me is I think I would be ashamed to tell you this in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I'd be like, oh, we did some, reassignment on a ship that they were floating in, right? But in Star Trek, these stories, because there's been this pattern in Star Trek of, this is how the sessions go, right? Like, this is just what it is, right? Like, and this would have fit as a single scene in an episode, right? And I have to say, I don't know how or why, but Modiphius 2d20 has done a really good job of making non-combat scenes much, much more relevant, right? And I think, I have to admit, I think maybe some of it is because so much of the book is dedicated to things other than the core book, other than combat, right? It's really pretty incredible, right? So, really loving this campaign. I know this is kind of a low burn update on where we're at in the story. These are the tales of Starfleet crewmen, security, Archibald. And it's an honor to share it with you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion about Starfleet adventures. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.